hard number on the smallest team size because it really depends on the game, team, and the team's combined skills.
I just couldn't risk having him with me. Not again.
So this is just a mechanic update. This is just a systems thing. We're not going to be talking about the systems that much. As much as I love systems. And we will keep, I think we'll keep this one because it's cold. That's the all-important cosmetic thing. I can probably turn down the voice volume if this wants to work for me. I can do that. I was worried if that was going to be a problem, but no one had said anything yet. And I think it was locally on my end. There we go. We'll see if that's better. Alright, so now we can go back out, and now we get to go out and actually do things now. Is this going to show me what I need right now? No. Okay. So now we can actually come back to where we just were. And I highlighted this earlier. And this is one of the first times that we'll see that type of the run wall. That'll be the first time that we'll be able to see the run wall in a different form. It's still roughly the same color, and it's still kind of highlighted in such a way that it's like, hey, you can probably do something with this. So that just kind of introduces us for exploring a bit. We can learn these new mechanics. So I'm just going to go around and start collecting stuff. This is I'm taking the back route. This is just kind of to show off the back route a bit more. This is obviously a dead end, as you can see, but the reward that we got was this wood here. So expecting a bear and looking for that bark, hold on to that. I don't know if we'll get to that in the next, say, half hour, 40 minutes, but that's actually a really that's a good observation, because the kind of the mid boss / final boss of this zone is a giant bear. Spoiler alert. If you're looking for a non-spoiler stream, probably not going to be the place you want to be. So now we're just encouraged to mostly explore a bit. And this is where we just were. So even if we came and jumped down, we would have found our way back. It's a big loop. And when it comes to open world games, this is where flow now starts to become a major thing. We need to, when you're designing, well, actually, let me start off with, the definition of flow is the way that the player is going to be moving through a level. And that is determined in a lot of different ways, and depending on the game, it's how that works. How that works is different. But the easiest way that I can describe flow is basically just picture a dry riverbed with a bunch of rocks and there's rapids and stuff like that. And start to have water flow through that river. Where the water flows naturally is going to be the path of least resistance. That's a basic science fact that you probably learned maybe in 3rd or 4th grade science, is that water flows downhill and it doesn't go uphill, because downhill is the easiest thing. So the player is like the water. It wants to move in a way that is the least resistant and the most direct. In terms of video games, usually the least resistant is going to be the most direct, just because of various different things. So you want to design a path of least resistance. But if you have only that path of least, if you only have the path of least resistance, then you have a very linear game, and these areas are meant to be explored and to be open and to be a little bit more what's the word? A bit more of like an open world type thing, even though it's not like Skyrim open world, but you're meant to be exploring. So how do you create multiple routes that kind of all get to you to the same spot without feeling like just 3 different tracks? And in this case, the way you do that is they do it a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's with lighting to draw you near. Other times it's through the objective system. So it's like, all right, so there's this right here. We can't actually do anything with this right now because we don't have rope. So we can just shoot at that, but we can't do anything with that. But we know that that's there, and that's kind of our reward. It's a bit of a weird reward because it's not like a straight material, but it is knowledge of something that we can come back to, and that also adds into replayability, which is not something I don't know if I'll talk about that today, but it would come back later. Definitely talk about it later. Landmarks. Landmarks are something that you can use to help guide the player through areas.
For a year, I have written with it.
In this case, we have the objective system that kind of just highlights that for us. But once we get near where we need to be, we'll actually see what we need to reach, which is I think later in the game, like there's a giant radio tower, or in this case, there's a big cliff. Those types of things. And landmarks are really, really important in level design because players don't remember paths well, but they remember like pictures, basically. So if you have pictures through these landmarks, then or I should say, if you make your landmarks memorable and stand out in a zone, the players are going to remember those more often. And if they can see them from like way off in the distance, that's even better. Because then the player always has kind of like a true north. It's like a compass driving them in that direction, so they know if they're ever lost, they just gotta look around and go, oh, okay, there's where we need to go. This one isn't as well highlighted. We have to rely a bit more on the pathing.
Trinity, they're here.
And the pathing of the area, which I explored some of those, and the objective thing. So I don't think that's a great example until we get to this point
What the hell was that?
where this whole area turns red. Yeah, and if you have two landmarks, you can then almost create like a basic compass. And actually, even with one you could, but with two it's just even better. So now we actually have our landmark. So now that we've gone there, we have our landmark, and if we ever get lost, we just gotta look for the big, giant, ominous red light of doom, as that will guide us through guide us into the next zone. So it's almost like it's almost impossible for us to miss it now. So we already learned, because we explored a bit, we already know that we can scramble up trees. And in this case, it's now telling us directly, so we already feel really smart, because it's like, hey, we beat the game because the level designers put all these things around. Like, we've passed so many of these. But it's this one that they're like, this is how you do it. We've probably already explored it enough, and we already feel like really, really satisfied because we figured out, hey, this is how this works. Alright, so... And again, we've been walking through deep snow, so we already know this. I think that this was kind of a... I think that since we've been walking through deep snow, I think forcing the player to walk through it right here and then telling them, hey, you can't do anything, was not really that great of a way to do that. I would have done something where they would have had to walk through deep snow, and then something where they might have to try and move, like slide off to the left, slide off to the right, or jump or something like that, but they can't, and it doesn't hurt them much, but it hurts them enough to reinforce the fact that they can't move around that much in snow.
Survey team, this is Overwatch. Please respond. Survey team, please respond.
So this is the so here's the landmark that we want to go to, and the way that the lighting is coming from, I believe it's coming from, I think it's the natural lighting. So with the way that the lighting is and the big red light, whatever is in front of us is very important. We don't know why it's important, just that it is. And red lights in games have a bit of a lot of the time level designers will say don't use red lights because players don't go near them. It denotes danger. I think they're half right. Yes, it'll denote danger, obviously, because there's a big giant bear. But I don't think that players necessarily will avoid it. Now, this is one case where we could have stayed and fought that bear. And in this case, I did not run fast enough. Oops. We could have stayed and fought the bear. But instead, it turned us around and actually started moving us in this direction. Like, it didn't even give us the option. We had to move. It started to move us. And I'm forgetting something because I'm talking. But starts moving us in this direction. So we have to go this way. We need to do things. Jump over the bad snow. Slide through here. Probably another quick time. Yep. Slap bear. I'm sorry for my mic is right next to my keyboard, so if that's a little loud, I apologize. And so, I mentioned earlier that bear is going to be a boss. We have to fight that bear down the road. And that is there's when you're kind of building level design, when you're building levels that have bosses, or even with puzzles. Remember back when we were doing that puzzle with the golden cupola tower thing? You want to be able to show the player the environment before they actually go and explore that environment. So in this case, it wasn't like we saw it and go, okay, there's a bear. They could have had the bear attacking the people there, but instead they wanted us to experience that, and they wanted us to experience that and see that, you know, there's a bear there, and then give us a bit of a kind of an adrenaline kick that we're running through, that we would have to kind of run from the bear. But it accomplishes the same thing. We saw the arena, we saw that there was a bear, and so now that if we have to pass through that area again, we know to either not find a way around or to get in and then get the hell out, because that bear is going to mess us up. I think the first time I played through, I actually tried to fight the bear, and it didn't really play out that well. Do not recommend. And so if you play, trying to think of, like, if you played Team Fortress 2, or actually I've seen some people in the Caffeine Discord. They're talking about Black Ops. Black Ops even does it in with some of their multiplayer maps and their single player maps, where you could where you would see an area and who's in it before you actually get there. So Devious is asking, wouldn't it be nicer if you'd be able to choose a path rather than, like, choose your path of escape rather than than be given one? To answer that question, yeah, it probably would be, but they didn't do that in this case because my guess is more of a story reason and just kind of directing players. If the path could have come the same way, sure, but you would still have been doing the same thing on each path, so it's kind of like, why have the player potentially do the same thing twice, but just in two different areas. It could reward exploring. Yeah, no, it definitely could. So that's definitely a possibility. I don't know why they didn't do it that way. Did we just come this way? No. Now, there might be more paths, but that was the one they sent us down. I don't actually remember if there's more than one path there, and we will probably discover that there might be one or two through that area. So I'm running through here. One thing that I always, if I'm consulting on level design or I'm doing level design myself, is worry about which direction the player is facing and how they get there. Because the player is going to forget very quickly, especially in a cutscene. Cutscenes are like kind of time. We use cutscenes to give the player a break, to give them a chance to relax and stretch their fingers, take a breather, that type of thing. So they're not always 100% engaged all the time, but they're kind of just being able to sit back and relax and enjoy what they just did, and then kind of prep for some more time, some more playtime. So if they're going into a cutscene, you gotta be very careful about which direction they're going, and if you're the level designer, you definitely need to know which direction they're going in, and which direction they want to go out, and which direction they're facing during that cutscene. Because in that case, we came in kind of at a V point, and I don't like V points. V points are very bad because they're a bit of a pinch point, or like a pinch point for players, is that they'll hit that tip, and then if there's a cutscene there, they're going to forget which way they came in, and it's hard to distinguish between which direction they came. So they could turn around and I'm gonna take out this bird's nest here. They could turn around and go the wrong way, and that's obviously a bad thing. Come on. Thank you. So you want to be careful with those types of things, and just something that you just keep in mind when you go into cutscenes. Just kind of keep in mind which direction you're going, and try to remember where you were. In that particular case, we were overlooking a cliff. It was a pincer point. I turned around and I was like, wait, did I actually come from this way? Because there was footsteps. So I thought that I had come that way. But I decided to go down it anyways because it was the only path that I saw at the time. So we have two options. We can either fall and take damage, or we can take the rope like it tells us to. That shows how the zip lines work. It's not the first time we've seen zip lines. It's this, we saw them in the last zone. Or I guess it's the same zone, but the last area. And so, basically, we know that they can only go downhill now. You can't go uphill. So if you were trying to explore earlier, like if I tried to like jump on this one here, I can't because there's no downhill. Alright, so back we go. Bring up the map. Does the map tell us? We don't have a map yet. Okay. So objective marker, again, telling us to go down this way. We could go this way. I believe this takes us up to where we were. I haven't played this in... I played a little bit of this just to kind of prepare, and I don't... this is a little bit farther than I was at. But we'll just go through with the objectives here. Because this is an area that we've been to before, I believe. Just a different part of that area. Grab some more mushrooms. And this is going to be us making poison arrows. So we've already grabbed mushrooms. We picked them up on the way in to the bear fight. I believe it was the bear fight. Now...